Hi, Emma Jane. It's such a pleasure to have you on my podcast today. I'm really excited to have you here. So, we've known each other for a little while, and I've known you as a serial entrepreneur. I know you're a radio broadcaster, you're an author, and also you're an avid campaigner for the 9010 charity. And it is those sorts of things that I really wanted to talk to you about today. I probably haven't done you justice in terms of the introduction. Do you want to just go ahead and just fill in any of the gaps that I might have left out?
Oh, thanks, Javad. Well, it's lovely to be here and to see you and to be on the other side of the mic. So, yeah, I'm a founder of a series of lifestyle businesses. My profession is performing arts and fitness. And through that, I have become a wellbeing expert, a speaker, a trainer, a mentor. My campaigning, my volunteering is quite rightly, as you say, for the charity Project 9010. And also of the movement, Not My Shame. All of those conversations with my volunteering and my charity are around protecting children, supporting survivors of child sexual abuse. So we know, obviously, it's based around the foundations of my own story that's created this sort of like movement and campaigning that I do today. Because I realise there's a serious difficulty in the world on these conversations. So that's what I do. Constantly busy, very happy to be here today, and looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you. And it is that, in terms of talking about it, that I really want to try and explore, because the podcast is all about toxic work environments, and we spend a third of our lives in the workplace, and none of us should be putting up with any toxicity. We should have all workplaces being happy and healthy places to be. However, that's not always the case. And one of the themes I wanted to explore with you was around resilience and mindset. And I think there's a huge amount of synergy in terms of the campaigning that you do and encouraging people to talk about things and what comes up for them when they're actually talking about it in terms of their own sort of mindset and the strength that they get from that, and what can be learned from your experience of the charity, and how we can apply that into ourselves in the workplace setting. So first of all, can I ask you, how did you get into it? Why is this issue so important to you, Imogen?
So my own story of child sexual abuse and abandonment made me realise so many things as an adult that could have helped me as a child. And I think, when I started sort of circling around that story and sharing my own story publicly, writing my book, getting messages out there, I felt that, society doesn't actually really look deeper into these conversations, and I mean for children, because we start as children. Every single person in this world starts as a child, yet no one considers protecting that child from the realities of this conversation, child sexual abuse. And by that, I mean the 90-10 statistic that 90% of children being abused are being abused by people that they know and love. We still educate the stranger danger message, which is the 10% of that conversation. So it's a real imbalance. And it was really that made me think, hold on a minute, we really need to do something here, because we don't want to scare children, right? We don't want to scare children with language. We don't want children to be fearful of the people that they know and love. But we need to help them protect themselves. So if they're ever faced with a situation, a difficult situation, that they have some tools to query and question that. And that's not by us going, to the kids, you've got to be careful of people you know and love. It's us giving them a language so that they can understand what permission, awareness, trust looks like, where to go if there's a conversation that feels uncomfortable, and also to explore those conversations in a way that's right for that child and the age. Unfortunately, a lot of my work also, I see children without voice, under 3, under 2, who are severely abused, and they've got no choice but to be abused because they are helpless in that in that scenario. So the work that we're doing is really important because it's helping young people learn early things that, you know, many of us who have gone through this trauma of child sexual abuse may have been able to use or lean on or query when difficult things started to happen. And also we're protecting children, but also we're helping children to understand what's right and wrong. So hopefully they don't go on to become abusers and offenders because they've understood a language, an education that maybe they're not getting at home, maybe they're not receiving within their own network. So I think it's a really holistic look at this conversation. It's a really important conversation, and it's upsetting. Of course, it's upsetting. You know, it's an uncomfortable conversation. But so many people just want to put it to one side and hope that it goes away. But my question to those people is, what about that child being abused? They can't just push it to one side and hope that it goes away.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting that you talk about the making them aware of the behaviours, because I understand it can be cyclical. So if whatever were happening to you as a child, it's people don't necessarily understand that what's happening to them is wrong, so they then repeat those behaviours themselves in later life.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Like I say, the holistic look at this is that, you know, if we can help children identify what's right and wrong early enough, that they won't repeat behaviours they've come across at home, and that they've had happen to them. And also, even those that haven't had that happen to them, they may have seen behaviours. And if you can challenge some of them away from the home, then you can help children really see what's right and wrong. And that's what we need to do. We just need to keep questioning conversations and behaviours for children, and not hoping that it will go away and just keep throwing stranger danger education at children, because that will not protect anyone.
Exactly, and it is that not being frightened of having the conversation, because if you push it to one side, you're not necessarily dealing with it. All you're doing is hiding from it.
Yeah. And, you know, how many people do hide from this conversation? You know, I know loads of people uncomfortable with this conversation. You know, they would rather not have it. They don't want to talk about it. Maybe they are a survivor and they're uncomfortable. Fair enough. Maybe they're on the outside supporting a survivor and they don't know how to deal with it. Well, actually, that's when you've got to say, well, look, you know, what you can learn to help other people is important, because we need allies. And also that survivor needs some help to live the life that they're in, or maybe support the world that they're in as well. So there's a great deal of conversation. Now, no one wants to stand there and have conversations with people who've been raped as children. But the child didn't want that either, right? So that's why it's important we talk.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In the course of your campaigning, Emma Jane, how many people do you think that you have come to you for support?
Well, I launched a Facebook group at the end of 2023, a private safe space for survivors of child sexual abuse, only survivors of child sexual abuse. We do not allow people who know somebody or would like to support the conversation, because it's a space for survivors. We have 600 members currently.
Wow.
Well, I think not even scratching the surface. That's people all over the world. My campaign went global last year, and that was an accident, really. I put on this T-shirt that said I wasn't afraid to say I was sexually abused as a child. We're now, I think the bigger question there would be, which countries aren't we in? I mean, it has gone everywhere. We're having translations done on the T-shirts. And the T-shirts aren't fashion items in that sense. They are a strong message, and they are helping people deliver messages and conversations to help them. So, so I think, you know, I know 600 people are in the groups, and I think beyond there, thousands, actually, thousands.
Yeah, yeah. And even if they're not in the group, there are probably parts of your message are reaching those people who don't even want to be in the group. And actually, it's probably kind of slowly and support and making changes to people, even if they're not necessarily out there just yet. and maybe they may
Oh yeah, I
be
mean, I know
more.
there's people joining even today, you know, when we're
Yeah.
speaking, they have been watching the group and now they suddenly feel confident
Mm,
enough to put themselves into it.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's a big step, you know, that is a big step.
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
campaign, the charity Project 9010. We are putting
Mm,
education packs into schools. We are in the embryonic stages. So, you know, it's
mm,
quite early days at the moment, but we have been to a few schools, and I think if we can help one child, that's
mm.
one more than we were last year. So
Absolutely.
um
Absolutely.
so yeah, so it feels like we're in a good space, and we have a good message and powerful education to share.
Yeah.
um and you know, we will protect children, but ultimately
Mm,
we need society to help us as well. And I think the other thing with the education is we will be encouraging other conversations, but what it will
mm,
probably do is also open up a door for someone who is being abused
mm.
to step forward and get support.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about speaking up, isn't it? And I think
Mm,
this is one of the things that I'm really, really keen to kind of explore a little bit more, because let's take it, if we put this in the workplace context, if you are experiencing workplace toxicity, you're experiencing kind of like bullying behaviors, you're being undermined, perhaps you're feeling overwhelmed, or even scared of actually tackling some of those behaviors that might be, excuse me, in the workplace or being leveled at you by your boss. And sometimes having those conversations can be a really difficult thing to have, and people would rather not do it. So I can see huge synergies across the work that you're doing with children and with survivors of child abuse, but also that capacity to be able to speak up and call it out when it's happening to you. What when people come to you, Emma Jane, what is the and you're encouraging them to speak out? What sort of changes do you see in them when they do so?
well, relief is a
Yeah,
huge one. People feel hugely relieved when they've opened Pandora's box as such, and
yeah,
released some of that suppression, you know, because I know myself, you know, I was underneath this cloud of lies and toxicity, and but it was all mine because I
mm,
wasn't speaking up and out. Well, it wasn't mine. I think, you know, the shame was that of the abuser, but I held on to that. I don't know why. I think we just protect the wrong people. um,
mm,
and then when you talk about it in the workplace, I do actually work in the workplace doing
yeah,
behavior change
yeah,
training. And it's a really huge part of a person's individual development
mm,
and growth. In professional environments, I always see employees covering their true emotions, that for that real fear of being
yeah,
exposed, questioning their
yeah,
ability as an individual and an employee,
yeah,
and jeopardizing their job by showing their vulnerability, so they don't speak. And we need to address this in all corporate worlds, really, because you're not going to have a flourishing team if you have a suppressed team.
yeah,
And if we can really ignite conversation and really expand and help people to understand
mm,
the importance of speaking up, and understanding how we can bring more knowledge to our lives to face the taboo conversations that are out there, then we can
yeah.
really grow. We can introduce realities, we can see what people are facing, and then I'm certain corporate environments will flourish with better informed employees and support.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there, because I mean the statistics alone kind of prove it to us that 23.6 billion in the UK alone is lost through it lost in productivity through
Mm,
toxic work cultures, because you end up with high absence, you end up with high turnover, people are disengaged, they, you know, that whole phenomena around the quiet quitter, those sorts of things. Therefore, we're not necessarily working beyond our job description if you're not actually bringing
no,
if you're not encouraging you to really kind of bring your whole self to work. And
I
part of
to-
that is about speaking up.
totally. And also you add in and you factor in that given what I know about child sexual abuse and survivors,
Yeah,
there will be a high percentage of child sexual abuse survivors in the workplace. Now,
yeah,
this isn't something that is actually an HR consideration, but I strongly feel that it should be, because when you consider that adult brains don't actually fully develop until late teens, early 20s. Some
Yeah.
experts say 30s. Now, that's when you're kind of going into your first feet through the door of the office,
Yeah.
and understanding what you need to do in the workplace. But anyone who's been sexually abused as a child will now be facing various degrees of mental health difficulties,
Mm.
because around 20 to 30 is when we start, lots of survivors, the penny starts to drop.
Yeah.
So for me, it was around 23. Even though I knew what had happened to me, I didn't realize what it was until sort of like in my 20s, because I'd had a delayed onset of maturity. So, I should have been in the workplace flourishing, instead of which
Yeah.
I was nosediving, and unable to perform because I was having the flashbacks. um, I had a delayed response to maturity, a trauma, that most people who've gone through any child sexual abuse or trauma from abuse in their younger years,
Yeah.
will understand now. But the impact of PTSD, that catches up with you at this time. So, my kind
Yeah.
of take on this is, if corporate environments were to offer better support for the conversation in the workplace by signposting anyone struggling because of childhood sexual abuse, then I am absolutely. I put my hand. I put my life on this.
Yeah.
I truly believe it would lead to better functioning employees, because
Yeah.
a supported employee is a loyal employee.
Absolutely, absolutely, and bravo to that, because and it's not just obviously it's important in terms of the adults going into the workplace who had that sexual abuse as children, but equally other forms of
Yeah.
abuse. For example, I was I was bullied because of my racial background when I was a child, and it does leave an imprint that when you get into the workplace that you're not necessarily, you're kind of adopting behaviors that are quite submissive, and you're not necessarily flourishing to your full extent within the workplace. And so there is a huge amount of encouragement that needs to be done to work on with people if they're willing to speak up, because you can't just guess who they are just by going around a room and saying, well, you were abused, you were abused, you were abused, and the different forms of that abuse that exist in the world. But people, without speaking, if you speak up, then actually you can be supported and you can behave in a different way to really truly recognize your potential.
100%. And I've talked about this so many times. I'm going to talk about it again when I come off this call, because it's so important to be
Mm.
able to reach your potential.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do that until like later on in my life, but I was also able to find myself therapy and support. Not everybody can
Yeah.
do that. Now,
Yeah.
if I'd have got to the workplace and seen that we are a diverse environment and we support these conversations.
Mm.
Now, I might have been too scared to have gone to get help then, but the penny might have dropped and I might have
Mm.
started to think, oh, I can get some help for this.
Yeah.
Like you with your own personal difficulties, which, of course, I'm sorry about that. But if you have had support early on, then maybe you would have found, much more a calmer existence throughout some of your
Mm.
developing years as well. But,
Mm.
we need to normalize uncomfortable conversations for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
from where I come from, for
Yeah.
survivors and also for allies, because we need to encourage conversation in the workplace,
Yeah.
and help people feel supported.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. So, what's next for Emma Jane? What's happening in your life?
So I'm getting married. I'm getting
Yes, I know. And
married.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm getting
Really
married this
exciting.
year. That's really exciting. Obviously, the work around the charity continues. The
Yeah.
campaigning continues. We're moving into May 2025 with our second campaign day.
Yeah.
And behind that, or I have all my businesses. So I work in
Yeah.
performing arts with children and adults in fitness and well-being. they
Mm.
are not just my businesses, they're my passions. That's my kind of like my
Yeah.
addictions, I guess. I love
Yeah.
fitness, I love well-being, I love performing arts, and it's a pleasure to be able to give that back to society, something
Yeah.
that actually helped me throughout my entire life without even
Yeah.
realizing was performing arts and fitness. So I'll be working on that.
What I
We've got
love
some.
about you, Emma Jane, is that you may have described yourself as a late bloomer, but actually you've really bloomed.
Yes,
It's so true.
yes. And so, I mean, I've been in business 25 years,
Mm.
but I guess I didn't start speaking out until the last sort of 10 years,
Mm.
or 8 years really. I'd no way I could have spoken about my journey before. So it's now really nice. So I've created something called Disco Shuffle, and
Yeah.
it's my baby. It's
Yeah.
tap dancing was my speciality. Fitness is my addiction. So it's a
Mm.
fitness program that you can tap dance to 70s, 80s, 90s disco music as well. So it's a
Oh,
really, really,
wonderful.
really brilliant concept, even if I
Yeah.
might say so myself. That is I've just launched it in the UK. I've got people all
Yeah.
over the world wanting it. So we're looking at sort of ways to get that seen. But
Mm.
I love this space that I'm in. I love this
Yeah.
space. I've got this wonderful um the world where I work, and it's my hobby. I've got the
Yeah.
campaigning, which is such a passion of mine to help children and adults, especially children. And I'm getting married, and
Mm.
of course, life has bumps. Everybody has bumps, but
Mm.
it's how do you manage them? Well, I try to keep such an open mind now on life and difficulties and people. So
Mm.
yeah, so it's busy, kids shows, fitness activities, lots more campaigning, charities going out. I'm meeting with PSHE panels to get the charity into schools as well. It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey,
Yeah.
but it's a journey that is bringing me such an education as well. I'm learning every day because charity isn't
Yeah.
new for me. I
Yeah.
came into charity a few years ago, having been in business for 25 years. So yeah, it's a journey, but it's a good one. And I'm very excited by it and can't wait to sort of see how it sort of unfolds. My legacy in life was that, if I can leave some hope and protection for children and adults, then that will be something that I know that will help me rest in peace.
Mm. Yeah. And it's so important. And thank you so much for sharing and being so open and honest about your story. I wish you, I think it's such an important message to get out there, because I don't think that any child should be living in a state of fear where they can't speak up about this sort of stuff, and to get the help that they need. And equally, adult survivors of child abuse, to go out there and to get the help. And I think you do such a brilliant job of raising awareness of it. So thank you for that. So if we have any listeners that are wanting to get in contact with you, Emma Jane, how can we do that?
The best thing to do, I say, is always go to my website first, which is
Mhm.
emmajanetaylor.com. Have a look around there, because there are links to my campaigning, there's links to my charity and my businesses, there's all my social media links. Not everybody wants to connect with me because they're
No.
survivors and they don't want to be
Yeah.
seen yet, but just go and have a read of my stuff,
Mm.
because if just by doing that it gives you a little bit more hope for another day, then
Mm.
I'll be very pleased with that. If you want to connect with me, there is a contact form on my website. I receive everything confidentially, personally myself.
Mm.
Bear with me with replies, because it can sometimes be quite busy, but I will
That's a
get
full
back to you.
inbox, no doubt. Yeah.
Yes, I do always return people's messages, just not as quickly as I'd like some
Yeah.
days, just because it's so busy. But I think, I've at the moment, I think it's important that I do receive my messages privately, because sometimes
Mm.
they are quite shocking. Alternatively, if you are a survivor and you'd prefer to go straight to my private space group on Facebook, if you again go to my page, go look for the Not My Shame campaign, and you'll find
Mm.
the details there to join those groups as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And we'll make sure that all of those contact details are actually included in the show notes so that they're there and they're visible. And I, again, want to thank you so much for your time. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning. So, yeah, and the very, very best of luck with the disco shuffle and the wedding and everything else that's going on for you. It's truly, you're truly inspiring. So thank you again.
Thanks, Javan.
Thank you. Take care. Ooh. So there we go.